Colorado has a game against Baylor this weekend, and I think it's must win, but for a different reason than what other people are talking about.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We are also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every single day, free and available wherever you get your podcast. So make sure to like, subscribe, follow, and tune in every single day so that way we could stay up to date on all things Colorado Buffaloes. They have a game this weekend. They're trying to build off their win against Colorado State. And what better way to get a win streak going than to get a win streak going, right? Colorado has yet to pair together wins this season. Obviously, we're only 3 games into the year, but they beat North Dakota State, and it was a little too close for comfort. But I already said we knew that was going to be like that. Then they get blown out by Nebraska, and it was like the same old, like, oh, the offensive line's bad. The offense is struggling, which Pat Shurmur, I still think right now is my biggest concern for this team. The offense, I think, has taken a step back with him calling the plays, and they're just too predictable. I think they looked a lot better against Colorado State. They won 28-9 this past weekend, and now it's homecoming week, right? We're voting for homecoming king, homecoming queen, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And Baylor comes to town, and Baylor's a desperate team. And I say this not to sort of take a you-know-what on Baylor. It's just Dave Aranda is coaching for his job here. Like, Dave Aranda is someone who led this Baylor program to a Big 12 title just a couple of years ago, and all of a sudden they have since fallen off. And so this has kind of been the Dave Aranda redemption season, I guess, if you will. So he takes over for Matt Rule and goes 2-7 in the COVID year. Not great. Then in 2021, they are like the biggest, best turnaround in college football. They go 12-2. They finished the season ranked as the 7th best team in the country. And then everyone was like, oh, those were Matt Rule's players. It doesn't count. And there was that whole thing. And then last year, in 2022, he goes 6-7. Not great. They started the season at number 10 and obviously finished unranked. Then they go 3-9 in 2023. And now they're 2-1 on the year. And so I would say his seat is probably quietly one of the hotter seats in college football because of the success that he had and then the inability to sustain that success. And so the reason that I'm saying this game is a must win for Colorado isn't because, like one of my colleagues said, if they lose this game, Deion Sanders will be fired. That's what someone at the network is saying. I firmly disagree with that. I just think that you have to give Deion Sanders way more than 4 games. Or for that matter, 16 games to really give an evaluation on whether or not it's working. Now, if he were to lose the rest of the season, like say he lost, how many games have we played? 3, so 9 straight. Yeah, then I'd be like, oh, I think it could be time to start talking about that. But I don't think that's going to happen, and I don't think Deion Sanders is on the hot seat by any means. But let's look at what Baylor's done thus far. They beat Tarleton State, beat the living poop out of them, 45-3. Then they lose to Utah, and the score was a lot closer than the game indicated. Cam Rising got injured, and once they put Isaac Wilson into the game, the offense kind of fizzled out while Baylor scored because Utah went up 23-3, at halftime, and then they didn't score the rest of the game, and they had a freshman quarterback in there. So I think that kind of overinflates how good Baylor looked, and then Baylor beat the brakes off of Air Force this past week, 31-3. Clearly not one of Air Force's best teams. I think Air Force is usually one of the better group of 5 teams, and we're not seeing that this year. So why is this must win for Colorado? Well, because you look at their schedule, and it's about to get inherently more difficult. It's going to go from Baylor, which I think they should win. They're favored to win only by 2 points. I think it'll be interesting to see. Really, the weather is going to play a factor for sure. It's going to be some rain. It's going to be chilly. For an offense that likes to throw the ball a lot, is that going to affect them? We're going to find out, right? We're going to find out how Colorado does in cold weather or in rainy weather. But after Baylor, they play UCF, who could very well be a ranked team by next week. Kansas State, who's a top 15 team, Arizona, who, even though they're not as good, still good. And then that's a tough 3-week stretch. So this game right here, not only does it pair together a couple wins, right? Gets you closer, gets you halfway to your ultimate goal of making a bowl game. It keeps the momentum going, right? I think this Colorado team, they needed to beat Colorado State convincingly to build confidence. And now they need to sustain that success and sustain that confidence. So that way, when they do play these better teams, when they do go to Orlando and play in the bounce house against the UCF program that's really, really good, they're looking a whole lot better, right? Like if you lose this game to Baylor, it's like, oh no, now we have this stretch, and who knows? They're gonna get a game here, get a game there. Like who knows what's gonna happen? I think if they beat Baylor, it really sets them up for a mini run opportunity, because the same way I said UCF could beat them, I think Colorado could compete with anyone on their schedule. It's just a matter of them stringing together consistent performances. And we've yet to see that this year, right? I mean, 3 games in, like granted, but we've yet to see them go, okay, the offense is clicking this game and the defense is clicking, or the defense is clicking, but the offense isn't. So this is the opportunity to string together that consistent performance. And I think that's kind of been, among a few other things, one of the biggest flaws of the Coach Prime era is their inability to be consistent, right? They have big wins, right? They win 3 games last year in a row, 3-0, consistency. Then they lose. They lose again. They get a win. They blow a game. And then they just boom, 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 fall apart, right? So this team is obviously very dependent on confidence. And I think the more confident they are, the more likely they are to be consistent, like I've been talking about. So I don't think this is a must-win game because anyone's job is at stake. I think this is a must-win game because Baylor's a beatable team. These are the games that you should win, right? Before you get into this gauntlet that is the next few games that I mentioned, then you get a break with Cincinnati, and then it's Texas Tech, who I think is bad, ? It's hard to tell. They went to overtime with Abilene Christian, and then everyone projected them to be upset by North Texas, and then they hung 60 on them. So it's really hard to tell who is who at this point. But I think we do know that Colorado, on paper, can match up with mostly every team in the Big 12. It's just a matter of playing a complete game, right? We haven't seen the offense really live up to. I thought the offense would be one of the most prolific in the country, and I don't think they are. Not yet. The defense has been improved, right? But the Colorado State game was the first time where they played a complete game. It was the first time where from first to fourth quarter, that defense was making plays. We saw them against North Dakota State. They clamped them in the second half. Same thing with Nebraska, clamped them in the second half. Colorado State was the first time that they just clamped throughout. So now let's put it all together. We got all the ingredients, right? Let's stir the pot. Let's get it cooking, right? It's fall season. I got my cozy jacket on because I went outside. It was a little chilly. Let's get the momentum going, huh? For Colorado, get some momentum going. I think it could help you. But yeah, that's what I think Colorado needs to do, or that's why I think it's a must-win game. Not because anyone's job's at stake, like I said, but because you need to feel that success. This Colorado team, whether people want to admit it or not, brand new team, they need to feel what it's like to win back-to-back games together. They need to feel that sort of high feeling, because just last week, Shedeur Sanders was kind of, I won't say throwing the offensive line under the bus, but it felt like it, right? There's a reason that he brought him up there after the Colorado State win. I don't know if that was his idea or someone else's idea to sort of show a united front, but clearly Colorado was like, hey, dude, you kind of made it seem like your team sucked. So maybe get those guys up there, get some good press, and get the vibes good again, right? So this Colorado team clearly needs to build off of the energy that they have. When we come back, I'm going to be talking about why MICAH Welch needs to be a bigger part of the offense than what he already has been, and then based on what we saw this past weekend. But first, a quick word from our sponsors. Hey, Locked On Buffs fans, have you heard about ROY? It stands for Return on You, and it's a new platform that lets you, the fans, get involved in NIL like never before by making contributions directly to your favorite athletes. By supporting players directly, you can help shape rosters, retain talent, and keep your favorite athletes out of the transfer portal. As you all know, NIL has changed the game for the athletes, and ROY changes the NIL game for fans. Here's what ROY does different, or why it's different. You directly support players. ROY allows fans to directly back their favorite college athletes. With ROY, fans can play a key role in shaping the future of their favorite teams. While athletes maximize their name, image, and likeness, NIL potential, when fans contribute to a successful campaign, they receive access to exclusive content from the athletes, such as their announcement decision, behind-the-scenes footage, and other personal reflections, all of which are available only to the fans who support the athlete. Download it for iOS or Android and enter referral code LOCKEDON, that's LOCKED spaced ON, and you'll automatically be entered into a sweepstakes to win $5,000 cash. Visit joinrow.com for additional details. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Get the Roy app for iOS or Android and start making an impact for your team on your favorite team. Use referral code LOCKEDON for an opportunity to win $5,000 cash. Visit joinroy.com for more details. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Get off the sidelines and get into the NFL game with Roy. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. We appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. So make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so that way you are staying up to date on all things Colorado. Let's talk about it. MICAH WELCH, I think, may have earned himself the starting job this past week. And it's one of those things where I talked about my keys to the Colorado State game. Let's just go back to that. And someone in my comment section after that episode was like, running has to be a key to the game. And I was like, until Colorado wins the game because they have ran the ball effectively, it will not be a key in my eyes, because they've shown that they want to win games through the air. They are one of the most pass reliant teams in the country. They've actually have the 4th most passing attempts in college football. And so the run game was not a key for me. But now that I've seen MICAH WELCH play against another team, now that I've seen him play, what he could do if given the opportunity, I think this team really needs to involve him more. And so let's just take a peek at the offensive grades this past week. It goes Shedeur, it goes Travis, it goes MICAH WELCH. And honestly, his grade might have been a little bit better if his pass blocking was better. They gave him with a 31.8. But MICAH WELCH, I kid you not, I don't know where he's been. I think this is whoever is sort of picking, because I think it's usually the position coaches who picks the starters. So that'd be Coach Flea, right? I think he needs a little like, what are we doing, right? We need more MICAH WELCH, because without him, this offense, I mean, relying on Charlie Offerdahl was just not, it was never going to work out. And if it was going to work out, it was going to work out in a different way than how Colorado was using him. And I think they used him incorrectly. I'm not saying that Charlie Welch deserves to start, or Charlie Welch. Who am I talking about? Charlie Welch. Charlie Offerdahl, excuse me. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve to start. I think he's put in a lot of work. He seems like a great guy. But if you're going to start him, you get him in open space. You don't run him between the tackles 3 times and be like, well, we tried to run the ball. It didn't work. Like, you have to work a little harder than that. So MICAH WELCH went 9 carries for 65 yards, 7.2 yards per attempt. He had a long rush of 25, 3 rushes of 10 yards or more. So clearly he is a dynamic running back that Colorado needs. And what does this mean? Like, how can you get someone more involved? Well, like I said earlier, Colorado is 4th in the country in passing attempts. So everyone is going to give you a light box. We'll just put it this way, which means they're not going to be stacking the box with 3 linebackers, 4 defensive linemen, putting their corners on islands. No, they are going to get more defensive backs on the field, more guys who could help cover the receivers, and they're going to challenge Colorado to run the ball. The Colorado State game was the first time this year that Colorado actually went, oh, look it, they're daring us to run the ball, and we're going to run the ball. What a concept, right? Get MICAH WELCH the ball. I compared him to Doug Martin. He's not the biggest guy in terms of like stature. I think he's like 5. As a fellow short king, I don't want to take away any height from him, so I'm going to verify. He's 5'9". I was going to say 5'10", so I actually would have given him an inch. He's 5'9", 205 pounds, and is just an absolute ball of muscle, and he's hard to tackle. And this Baylor team, while I think that they have been really good defensively in the past, I think they're kind of not what they used to be, okay? And so when I see this Baylor team who has done really well on defense this year, even though I kind of contradicted myself, so let me elaborate. I think Baylor as a whole is not what they used to be, obviously. Defensively, though, they are still stout. That's the strength of this team. So what is Baylor going to do? Well, Baylor's strength is taking away your strength, which is the passing game for Colorado. So what does that mean? You have to get something else involved to get the passing game going. You get the run game going, you get the play action game going, which inadvertently gets the passing game going. So get MICAH Welch the ball. I liked what Isaiah Augusta brought to the table as well. Get him the ball as well. And if you're able to get this offense clicking, right? If you're able to get chunk plays and like, let's just put it this way. If you don't have to go for 3rd and 9 or 3rd and 10 every single drive, it's a good drive because Colorado is, I mean, it happens every game, right? We've seen it this year where they're just not setting themselves up to succeed because they're putting themselves in these weird situations where it's like, oh, yeah, we threw the ball the first 3 plays and now we're punting. Like Colorado starts really quickly sometimes, or at least last year I would say they started quickly. This year they haven't started quickly at all. And so it's like you need to see a little more efficiency, and the run game can help you be more efficient in all aspects. So if MICAH Welch gets you 5 yards, guess what? You now don't have to rely on Shedeur Sanders to air that thing out as much. And it takes the pressure off Shedeur, takes the pressure off the offensive line. I think it's still a work in progress. Granted, they were better. But, I mean, you don't want to just sort of throw your offensive lineman out there to the wolves because it's one of those things where this unit needs to build confidence. And I think they had their confidence sort of, I'm going to say hindered. But after the Nebraska loss, when they were basically being thrown into the table, it wasn't great, right? And so this Baylor team, they don't have a very good pass rush. Them and Colorado are actually ranked the same. So they are going to put an emphasis on getting to Shedeur Sanders. If that means they blitz more, so be it. But how do you get teams to stop blitzing? Or how do you get teams to respect your run game? You have to run the ball. That's all. All of this is leading up to me saying run the ball. And so far, MICAH Welch has looked like the best running back, I would say, both years. Even Dylan Edwards. I think Dylan Edwards was more effective in open space, and I think he was better in the passing attack just because the Colorado offensive line couldn't block for him. So I think MICAH Welch has been the first running back of the Deion Sanders era to show that, hey, I can run between the tackles. I'm going to break tackles, and I'm going to get a chunk of yards every time I touch the ball. And that's something that they haven't had, and that's something that they need to capitalize on. And I do think I talked about this with Scott yesterday. Give him 15 carries. The most carries someone has had this season is 9, and it's him and Dallin Hayden, who we still haven't seen a lot of. So give him a chance to really take over a game, or give him a chance to sort of make an impact. Also, there's going to be rain. The ball could be slippery, right? And you don't want to be relying on the passing attack during a rainy game. Obviously, you would like to be able to pass the ball. I'm not pretending like I'm not pretending they're just going to stop passing it, right? But if you could lean on the run game, then, dude, that opens up this offense even more because this offense as a whole does not rank well. The passing attack ranks really well, but total offense, they're not that impressive. So get the run game involved. It opens up way more. And I think MICAH Welch is the key to this offense, sort of going from a really solid to really good offense to a good to great offense. I think he's the key. When we come back, I'm going to be talking about all things Baylor, Colorado, how they stack up against one another. This episode of Locked on Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3 free week trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you could cancel any time. Just visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. Visit FanDuel to get all the great deals and get yourself some YouTube TV in the process. Welcome back to Locked on Buffs. I appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. Let's dive into it. These are how the teams stack up. So I went through it so you don't have to. And I'm just going to give you a comparison, give you a little tidbit, and what helps Colorado or hurts them. So I went through the major categories of what I think are important in college football, and we're going to compare. So starting with total offense, because this factors in the run game, and for Baylor, it factors in the fact that their offense hasn't been the most dynamic. Both of these teams are pretty similar. Colorado ranks 73rd in total offense with 394 yards per game, 6.3 yards per play, and Baylor ranks 78th with 381 yards and 5.89 yards per play. So I would say, even though Baylor's offense isn't as prolific in the passing game, as a whole, these units statistically are around the same. Obviously, Colorado has much more dynamic players, but statistically, they're around the same. Total defense, this is where it gets interesting, and I think this is where it will be a test for Colorado, because you look at, and let me pull up where Nebraska ranked, because I think that would be a good gauge, because Nebraska dominated Colorado, and they dominated them because their defense was good. And Nebraska currently ranks as the 24th team in the country in total defense. Baylor ranks 13th. This is where it could get tricky for Colorado. If they are unable to go away from being one-dimensional, because I think the biggest test for Colorado is they just saw it worked running the ball. Like, they just got proof that it works. So if they don't go back to it, it just goes to show that they are not really paying attention to what works and what doesn't. So Baylor ranks 13th with 230 yards per game allowed. They've allowed 3 touchdowns. Colorado ranks 88th in total defense, 8 touchdowns allowed. And I think a lot of this stems from the fact that their first 2 games, they had those inconsistent first halves, right? I think if the defense picks up where they left off this last game, we'll see them improve on these rankings. Rankings don't mean everything. This is just a comparison, but we'll see them improve. But Baylor's bread and butter is obviously their defense. Scoring offense, Colorado, 101. Baylor, 29.3. Baylor's benefited from an easier schedule thus far. But again, well, I would say it's about the same. I'll check the ESPN FPI for that. But I do think that Colorado's first 2 weeks were probably tougher than Baylor's first 2 weeks, just based on Baylor got a little pick-me-up with Tarleton State. So let's strength of schedule thus far. Baylor, they're around the same. So Baylor's strength of schedule is actually better than Colorado's, 47th to Colorado's 50. But yeah, I think Colorado's, I personally think that Nebraska and North Dakota State were more challenging than how Colorado opened, or than how Baylor opened up, because they got Tarleton State and then a wounded Utah. So either way, I digress. Baylor's offense has done a little bit better in points per game, but again, that doesn't shock me. I don't like what Pat Shurmur is doing. I haven't liked pretty much anything I've seen from him this year. I think he's taken a really, really dynamic or potentially dynamic offense and hindered it, and it made it worse than what it should be. Scoring defense, Baylor ranks 12th. Colorado ranks 68th. Baylor's allowing 7.67 per game. Colorado, 21 per game. Penalties, yikes. Colorado, again, very undisciplined team. They rank 105th with 24, and Baylor ranks 62nd with 17. And you're probably like, that's only 7 penalty different. 7 penalties is a lot. There's teams in college football who might not even have seven penalties thus far. So that's a lot. Turnovers gained, Baylor 4, Colorado 4. Shout out to Braden Fowler-Nicolsi. I think he contributed to, I think Colorado State contributed all of them, if I'm not mistaken. Let me do a little recon of that game. I'm pretty sure Colorado's got all of their turnovers against Colorado State, which is, I mean, by all means, it's not bad. Yeah, they got all 4 of them this past week. So I think this Colorado team, even last year at the beginning of the year, they were really big play dependent. And I think that's going to be part of what helps them succeed this year, is if they can force turnovers, because it sets up the offense to be in better position. Red zone D, Colorado is actually 30th in the country in red zone defense. When you get that far, Colorado has shown that they could prevent teams from getting into the end zone, which by all means, great skill to have. Baylor's 55th. Rushing offense, Baylor's 60, Colorado 129th. I mean, like I said earlier, get MICAH Welch going. Get him the ball. I think he's the difference maker here. And then passing, Colorado ranks 9th in the country. Baylor's 80th. So you're going up against one of the best defenses. It's going to be one of the best passing offenses versus one of the best defenses. We'll see who wins out. But yeah, like I mentioned earlier, Colorado has only thrown the ball less than Texas Tech, who's notorious air raid, App State, and then TCU, who is also an air raid program. So if you're Colorado, run the ball when the opportunity presents itself, and don't let Baylor settle in and just take away the pass. Otherwise, you will struggle. I think Colorado should win this game. I think it'll be close because of the defense. I feel like weather is going to be a factor as well. I think it's going to limit how much Colorado can throw the ball, but I do think that Colorado comes away with a win. You guys comment below what worries you most about Baylor. Let me know what you think, and I will see you guys on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Buffs. This has been another great episode of Locked On Buffs. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, give me 5 stars wherever you get your podcast, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a great day.